Picture this. A man is dragged into a cold room, handcuffed, sweaty, the interrogation lights burning in his face. The reason for his arrest seems almost ridiculous. A simple shoplifting offense. Charles Ng had stolen some tools. That was all. But the scene that begins with something so banal reveals itself to be the gateway to a hell California would never forget. It was the smallest detail that hid a monstrous secret. And you've probably already realized, nothing in this story is what it seems. Because California, that state of golden sunshine, crowded beaches, and dreams sold as promises, also harbors a dark side, invisible to tourists, but etched on the skin of those who survived. A face that breathes among the Hollywood hills, that creeps through the silent deserts, that hides in ordinary neighborhoods. And when it emerges, it reveals something no one is ready to face. The Land of Stars was also the scene of the most evil serial killers of all time. The cruel detail is that these monsters weren't born in dark alleys or forgotten ruins. No, they moved all around us. A neighbor, a coworker, someone you might have passed at the supermarket. The pain this brings is incredibly uncomfortable. If they were there, who else could be there now? And maybe that's why you're here. Because deep down there's this wound. The need to understand how evil hides in everyday life, how it deceives, how it disguises itself until it's too late. You feel the need to look at these stories not out of idle curiosity, but because there's an urgency to understand. An urgency to protect yourself, to decipher the signs, to no longer be another pawn in the silent game of these predators. California's secret isn't its glamour. The secret is the blood that flowed behind the scenes. It's the story of men who destroyed entire families, manipulated, tortured, and erased lives without remorse. It's the invisible map that connects cases like Charles Ng's to so many others that turned once illuminated streets into scenes of horror. And here's the promise. Throughout this journey, we will tear back the curtain that time has tried to hide. We will expose, with the necessary coldness and inevitable intensity, who these killers were, how they acted, what they sought, and why they chose this very fertile ground for terror. But don't expect comfort, because I won't just give you names and dates. I'll put you in a cell in the middle of the night, when the silence weighs more heavily than screams. I'll guide you through corridors where every shadow carries a memory. I'll open the pages of confessions, of last words, of looks that never blinked in the face of death. And in the midst of this labyrinth of darkness, you will find something beyond pain. You will find clues, signs, scars that can serve as a shield. Because the solution is not to ignore evil, but to recognize it before it knocks on your door. This is the way to transform fear into awareness, shock into alert. So brace yourself, because this isn't just a list of crimes. It's a downward spiral. A spiral that begins with a trivial theft, and ends revealing the dark side of California. The secret the state tried to bury. And now you stand before him. As you delve into this darkness, feeling the tension, the pain, the silent fear these corridors carry, you realize it doesn't end here. That there's more to discover. More secrets hidden in the shadows, more faces that should never be forgotten. And that's why you need to stay with me. Subscribe. Not as an empty click, but as a silent pact. Together we will traverse places few have dared to look, we will hear stories most try to ignore. Each subscription is like turning on a small light in a dark hallway, and that light can be the difference between forgetting and understanding, between fear and awareness. Because here, each video is a piece of the puzzle you never knew you needed to put together. And if you disappear now, if you don't press that button, part of that map will remain lost, untouched, hidden in the shadows. Do you feel that anxiety? It's normal. It's what moves us. It's what connects us to what is human. Curiosity, compassion, the need to face what scares us. It's not just about watching. It's about being present, about following every step, every detail, every revelation that will captivate you until you can't put it down. Because when you subscribe, you're not just receiving stories, you become part of something bigger. A community that understands pain, horror, injustice, and wants to face it head-on, without pretending it doesn't exist. And you know, this journey is far from over. Each video is a deeper dive. And the next story, the next confession, the next secret, it could be the one that finally answers that question you never knew you had. So stay. Don't walk away. Sign up and come with me. Because if you leave now, you'll only know half the truth. And the truth, well, the truth awaits those who have the courage to continue. The next step is just ahead. Are you ready to go where no one else dares? Do you feel the chill that pierces your skin? It's as if every shadow has a life of its own, as if California itself hides secrets no one dares name. You walk down seemingly ordinary streets, but something pulses in the air, invisible. Even before you know what you're about to discover, there's a sense of disharmony, a subtle tremor of warning you can't ignore. Families disappeared. Not one, not two. 3, 4, until a pattern began to emerge, but no one yet saw it in its entirety. Men, women, children, vanished as if the earth itself had swallowed them. And you, watching from here, feel the weight of that absence. Every closed door behind a lit window hid an interrupted story, a muffled scream that would never make the newspapers. The investigators knew of a few cases. Small reports, snippets of news, brief headlines that flickered in their minds like cold light. But there was no connection. Nothing to link Dubs to that man from the Marina District. Nothing to explain why, suddenly, an entire family could disappear without a trace. And you realize, this disconnect wasn't due to incompetence. It was as if there was a veil between what was seen and what was felt, between what was public and what was deeply hidden. Every decision the investigators made felt like a step on glass. Every answer seemed only to open more questions. And as you try to piece these pieces together, there's a door ajar somewhere, one no one dares cross. A remote place, a mountain cabin, where the air smells of pine and secrecy, where the wind carries echoes of ancient whispers. Claire-Lynn Balaz, Lake's ex-wife, appears like a key, but even she hesitates. Her every word seems to measure the red line of what could be revealed. And you feel, even from a distance, the tension. Because there's something more, something she knows but doesn't yet dare tell. And meanwhile, the world goes on as if nothing had happened. Do you sense the absurdity of this? The frustration, the helplessness of observing without being able to intervene, of knowing fragments of a hidden truth that seems greater than any mind can comprehend. Think about the behind the scenes of the investigation. A stolen car, a trivial detail that sets off alarm bells. Small movements, routine actions, that suddenly explode into an abyss of horror. Lake and Ing weren't just thieves. Every step they took, every banal gesture, was the tip of an iceberg few knew existed. And you, following the story, feel the crack of understanding before it even fully forms. It's visceral. It's painful. Because each revelation that reaches you brings with it the weight of a transformation. Your perception shifts, your mind drifts into those dark cabins, into that bunker built like a prison within the world. Could you imagine what lurks behind a false wall? Perhaps buried boxes, photographs, diaries, and, yes, bodies that speak in silence, bearing the decisions of those who crossed the line and never returned. With each video watched, with each fragment that emerges, you feel empathy for the pain and, at the same time, the frustration of psychological voyeurism, the temptation to observe something that shouldn't be seen, to touch the forbidden with your eyes. You find yourself imagining the mentality behind it, the calculated coldness, and yet something breaks inside you. There's humanity there too, in the dread, the urgency, the desperate attempt to understand, to survive, to escape. And amidst this whirlwind of clues, you begin to perceive the psychological impact, not only of the victims, but also of those small interactions, of an investigator's gaze as he grasps the extent of the horror. Every decision made, every step in the cabin, every twist in the coded diaries, creates layers of suspense that seem to touch you directly. You feel your breath catch, your heart race, your mind trying to piece together, as if each fragment of information were a piece of a puzzle that changes with every second. And then, just when you think you understand, doubt arises. How many bodies have yet to be found? How many details are still buried, invisible, waiting to be discovered? You feel the tension, the chill, the risk of looking too deeply. Because California's hidden truth is like a broken mirror. Each shard reflects something different, and none of them shows everything. And it is in this fracture that you remain, walking between curiosity and fear, between empathy and horror, feeling that, at every moment, you are about to discover something that will change your perception forever. The door remains ajar, the cold light still flickers over the empty corridor, and you realize you're trapped on this threshold. Between what's known and what's forbidden. Between what you can understand and what's still hidden. And as you watch, you whisper to yourself, every step you take here, every detail you absorb, transforms you. The story isn't over yet, and something much larger moves in the shadows, something just waiting for you to take the next step to reveal the next layer, the next piece, the next hidden truth. And it's in that moment, in that unsettling silence, that you realize, this isn't just about crimes. It's about understanding the mind, feeling pain, approaching the edge of what is human, and maybe, just maybe, discovering something about yourself. Do you feel the tension even before you see the scene? It's that moment when the air grows heavy, and each breath seems to tear an invisible space within you. Leonard Lake sits there, his eyes fixed on something only he sees. You notice the slight tremor in his hands, the sweat that shines like cold light on his skin. Each second is a compressed eternity, each glance a lit red line. He swallows the cyanide capsule. And you feel the impact before his body gives in. An absolute silence that spreads as if the world had held its breath. But what he leaves behind isn't just a body stretched out in the cell. It's a trail, a rift opened in time and space, an invitation for you to follow where he refused to go. It's not just death. It's revelation. Lake doesn't take the secrets with him. They remain invisible but pulsing in the darkness, like echoes you can hear if you lean in closely enough. Every previous gesture, every decision, every suspicious glance was part of a silent transformation, a mindset built on pain, fear, and calculation. And you realize even from a distance that this capsule isn't the end but a turning point. The hidden truth begins to insinuate itself. Ing wasn't just a partner in crime, he was an extension of an idea, a prolongation of an obsession. Lake's death didn't end anything, it opened a portal to what no one wanted to face. As you process this, imagine the behind-the-scenes story of this chain of events. The authorities, still confused, began piecing together fragments. Bank records, abandoned boxes, maps scratched with lines that only make sense from within Lake and Eng's psychological labyrinth. Each discovery brings shock. Each clue reveals another, darker, more dangerous. And you, the observer, feel the fascination for the forbidden growing. It's not empty voyeurism, it's a call to understand, to feel the red line and uncertainty pulsing within you, without ever crossing the line that separates curiosity from disaster. Have you ever stopped to think about what goes on in the mind of someone who knows their time is up? Not the mind of a distant killer, but the mind of a man aware of every choice, every gesture that brought him to his cell, every victim he left behind. Every thought is a labyrinth, a succession of decisions that fold in on themselves. And as you feel the chill run down your spine, you realize this isn't just history. It's immersion. It's transformation. Because you begin to ask yourself, if it were you, what would you do? What decision would reveal your own hidden truth, if you had to face the ultimate impact of your choices? And the cruelest, most seductive thing is that Lake's failure leaves an opening for Ing. He breathes, observes, learns. The door is ajar, and the line between guilt and regret begins to blur. Every object left behind, every scrap of paper, every photograph, everything is a clue and a trap at once. You find yourself interpreting, distrusting, doubting what is real and what is manipulated. The narrative fragments, and you feel each fragment penetrate your mind, mixing reality and interpretation, creating that inextinguishable whirlwind. As the investigation progresses, you notice the signs. Small, subtle, but persistent. A stained notebook, a half-open door revealing nothing, a cold light flickering over a scribbled map. All of this points to a pattern no one seems to want to see. And you feel the pain of frustration, of helplessness in the face of a mystery that grows with each revelation, that cannot be explained simply. You want to understand, you want to fit each piece together, but you realize that each answer only creates more questions. And among these fragments, Ing moves like a shadow, learning, absorbing. Lake's every action is now a tool, every desperate gesture becomes a trap. You feel the tension build, the anticipation of what's to come. Eng's mind forms before your eyes in real time, and you feel like you're inside it, walking the dark corridors of his psyche, feeling the cold, the risk, the psychological impact that each decision carries. What will he do with all this? What hidden truths will he choose to reveal, and which will remain buried, pulsing in the depths of his consciousness? You realize that Lake's death isn't a conclusion. It's an opening. And as the air in the cell seems to freeze, you feel the narrative expand, the tension spread, and you understand that what was about to be discovered is still just a fragment, just the tip of something much larger. And in that moment, you breathe along with the story, feeling the transformation, the mindset, the impact of each choice, each decision, each shadow that passes before your eyes. The door remains ajar. The cold light still dances over the silent hallway. The red streak continues to pulse. And you know, with an unquenchable unease, that you are about to enter something that cannot be undone, that the hidden truth of California will still reveal itself, layer by layer, bringing you ever closer to the edge of what is human, what is moral, what is impossible to ignore. You feel the weight of the damp earth beneath your feet before you even imagine the cabin. The California sun seems pale, almost irrelevant, as your investigation takes you down forgotten roads, curves that close in on themselves, trees that whisper secrets no one wants to hear. Every detail is a red line, every trail a promise of pain and revelation. Lake's cabin looms in the shadows, isolated, as if the world has decided to forget it there. You could walk through the gate and not notice a thing. But you sense there's something beyond. There's always something beyond. Inside, nothing seems out of place at first glance. stolen objects scattered about, fake license plates, diaries with notes that confuse more than clarify. But you sense something subtle: order in chaos, method in disorder. Lake isn't just careful. He's methodical, almost obsessive, constructing a parallel reality where every decision, every movement, every secret is silently recorded. And you sense, even without touching anything, the presence of a mind that observes, that calculates, that weaponizes the banal. The psychological transformation isn't just within him. You begin to feel it within yourself: the fascination with the forbidden, the curiosity that grips you, the shiver that refuses to disappear. You examine every corner, every shadow barely visible in the cold light. The diaries don't reveal everything, only fragments. Crossed out names, dates, codes that only make sense to those who live behind the scenes. And you, the observer, realize that the hidden truth lies between the lines, in the details no one notices. Each page is both an invitation and a warning. Lake's mindset reveals itself not with explicit words, but with the silent impact each gesture carries. You wonder, how far can a mind bend in on itself without breaking? And how far could you see into the abyss without falling? As you advance through the vast terrain, you notice signs of recent construction, signs that contradict the cabin's simplicity. Every brick, every nail, every hidden wall suggests planning, intent. The police still don't understand. You understand, what lies before you isn't just a refuge. It's a psychological laboratory, a map of decisions, a space where hidden truths are transformed into action. And you feel the suspense growing, the red line pulsing, the silent pain of each potential victim imagined in your mind. And then comes the first fracture in the apparent narrative. A door ajar at the back of the property. You hesitate, feeling the chill of anxiety creep up your body, and realize that this is exactly what the story wants you to feel. The uncertainty of what is real, the mixture of interpretation and evidence, the blurred line between suspicion and certainty. The hidden structure reveals itself only partially, like a ghost of brick and wood, but it's enough to disturb the observer's psyche. Every shadow seems to carry echoes of decisions. Every corner reveals fragments of mentality, every object a silent reminder of the impact a planned crime can have on the surrounding reality. You feel the tension build as if you were breathing inside Lake and Eng's own bodies. The psychological voyeurism you experience isn't just curiosity. It's a distorted, almost painful empathy that allows you to see how a human mind can bend, reconstruct itself, transform into a space of terror. You notice details the police overlooked. Traces that intersect, patterns that repeat, signs that seem trivial but carry weight and intention. And with each discovery, you feel the psychological impact of what's yet to come, the responsibility of knowing something that shouldn't be as human as it is. The diaries reveal plans that have not yet come to fruition, names of people who may or may not have existed, codes that defy immediate interpretation. Each fragment is a clue, each clue a threat and a promise. You find yourself absorbing every detail, mentally reconstructing every decision, every movement, every mistake that opened the way for this fissure of horror to expand. And the cabin, now less of a cabin and more of a secret, seems to pulse with its own energy, inviting you to look closer, to feel deeper, to cross psychological boundaries you didn't know you could touch. And as the sun sets, casting long shadows, you realize that the hidden structure isn't just a physical extension. It's an extension of the mind. It's a backstage area of insanity, a laboratory of decisions, a silent stage for transformations and revelations that are only now beginning to be understood. The half-open door insists on calling you, the cold light cuts out shapes on the floor, and you feel like the story hasn't yet revealed everything. The tension doesn't diminish, it builds. Every step forward is a risk, every breath is an impact, every thought is a fragment of a hidden truth that will yet unfold before your eyes. And you finally understand that the rift opened by Lake's death hasn't been closed, only widened. The vast terrain, the cabin, the hidden building, everything points to a continuity that defies comprehension. And even without knowing exactly what you'll find, you sense the narrative preparing to delve deeper into Eng's mind, into the decisions he would make, the psychological impact each gesture would carry. The red line continues to pulse, the door remains ajar, and you sense with every fiber of your being that California's hidden truth is about to reveal itself in layers you can't yet fathom. You feel it too, don't you? The shiver that rises when you imagine every decision, every choice that shaped that abyss. Eng's mind, Lake's tracks, everything intertwines as if it were happening right there in front of you. And I want to know, what does this provoke in you? What word comes to mind when you think of the half-open door, the cold light cutting across the floor, the red line pulsing silently? Write in the comments. A word, a phrase. Something that represents the fear you felt, the doubt that paralyzes you, or even the shock you still can't explain. Make this gesture a silent ritual, a sign that you were there with me, feeling every fragment, every secret revealed little by little. You don't need to explain yourself. Just let out what moves you, what scares you, or what sparks your curiosity. Every comment is a bridge, a way to show that no one is alone in this labyrinth of emotions, and truly, every word you share helps to continue bringing stories that cut deep, that defy understanding, and that delve into what you feel but can't always name. Is what you feel fascination or repulsion? Courage or hesitation? Doubt or certainty? What you write may reveal more than you imagine. It may be a mirror of your own mind when confronted with darkness. And as you write, you realize that the ritual doesn't end here. That the story, silently, continues to breathe, growing, expanding to places you haven't yet dared to look. So say it. A word. A sigh. A gesture converted into text. Leave it in the comments. And feel as you write, that you are part of what is to come, that the hidden truth of California is also built with your broken silence, with your participation in this psychological labyrinth that has not yet ended. What do you feel when you see the door ajar? Fear or fascination? What will happen when it opens completely? Your answer is closer than you think. You look at these tapes and feel something tightening in your chest, don't you? Each frame is a fragment of pain, a window into a truth you don't want to face but must. The cold basement light, the heavy breathing, the red streak vibrating in the air. You realize you're there with me, caught between horror and curiosity, feeling the psychological impact even before you comprehend the crimes. Every scream, every word captured on camera is a recorded decision, a transformation in the minds of both the observer and the observed. And it's precisely at this point that I need you to connect with me. Stay with me until the end. It's not just a sentence, it's an invitation to walk through every half-open door, to see what the police or the newspapers don't let behind the scenes. Every detail you'll notice is a revelation that changes your perception of what you've already seen, of what you thought you understood. And you deserve to find out. You deserve to feel the weight, the hidden truth, unfiltered. Because only by watching until the end will you begin to understand the real impact, the mentality behind the terror, the decisions that led to each gesture, each subtle choice that transformed into something monstrous. As the images progress, you notice there's something more. There always is. Small inconsistencies, false clues that confuse and provoke. A shifting glance, a sudden movement. And you wonder, is this real or just my mind trying to fill in the blanks? This uncertainty is what keeps us hooked. This silent pain, this fascination with the forbidden, this sense of safe voyeurism, is what makes every second count. Stay with me until the end. Feel every shadow, every silence, every fragment that hasn't yet been revealed. Because the story doesn't end with the tapes. It continues in every corridor, in every space where the light doesn't reach, and in every decision that you'll understand only when you notice the details that go unnoticed. The footage shows women tied up, whispering, begging, speaking to the camera as if a ritual were taking place. But the ritual is never complete in the first layer. And that's why you need to remain attentive, because each piece of the documented horror carries a hidden truth that will reveal itself slowly in layers. Do you feel the tension? Every second that passes within the darkness is a mirror of Ing and Lake's own minds, reflecting choices, regrets, and manipulations. A slow shock that seeps in without you realizing it. And there's a reason you don't blink. Because the fragments you see now, the screams, the fear, the strange objects, the fake license plates, are just your first contact with something even more cruel. Something hidden between what is documented and what remains invisible. Every gesture you perceive, every detail you record, is a step toward understanding an abyss no one has dared to fully map. Stay with me until the end. Feel the breath, the cold, the anticipation. Feel the impact of each revelation yet to come. You're getting closer to the truth but not yet completely. The emotional pain you feel, the fascination with the forbidden, the uneasiness that rises in your stomach, all of this is part of what keeps the story alive. Each fragment that is deliberately left out provokes, tests your perception, makes you doubt what you've already seen. And you realize, whispered almost secretly, there is much more, much beyond the tapes, much beyond what the police recorded. Half-open doors, cold lights reflecting off the concrete, red streaks silently crossing the floor. Every detail is an invitation to keep looking, to keep feeling. And you, who have come this far, understand that the story isn't just about them. It's about you, about the secure tension that grips you, about the empathy and fear that coexist in the same instant. So take a deep breath, pay attention to every shadow, every gesture, and stay. Because only those who watch until the end begin to comprehend the magnitude of the documented horror and the real impact that is yet to come. Stay with me until the end. What you discover will change the way you view every decision, every choice, every trace of a broken mind and a terror that continues to breathe between the lines. And as you observe, feel, perceive, something inside you also changes. The abyss isn't just in the cabin, the tapes, or the crimes. It seeps here, inside you, and you must cross it with me. The heavy smell of mold and iron pierces the air as you approach the bunker. The half-open door, creaking softly, reveals only a fragment of what lies within, and you immediately sense the coldness that isn't just physical. Each step on the worn floor reverberates like a whisper from the past, a memory you didn't ask for but now is offered to you. You notice rusty handcuffs, chains dangling from hooks, marks on the concrete that don't belong to anyone who made it out alive. The silent cameras seem to follow your every movement, your every hesitation, as if Lake and Eng's own minds are still there watching. The bunker isn't just a space, it's an architecture of the tortured psyche. The makeshift cell reveals decisions made with calculated coldness, designed to ensure that every human being within it would lose not only their freedom but also their very identity. Human remains, packed with carelessness and abandon, spread silent terror. And you feel, even from a distance, the weight of the psychological impact. A chill runs down your spine. It's not just physical horror, it's the feeling that everything there was designed to break not just bodies but minds, mentalities, and souls. You notice the cold light streaming through the small opening in the door. It illuminates only what's necessary to provoke, leaving dense shadows where everything else hides. The red line seems to vibrate on the concrete, as if the material itself knew the atrocities committed there. You examine the diaries, the meticulous records, the lists, and realize that nothing there was by chance. Each written word is a piece of a macabre puzzle, a carefully crafted framework of horror. Subtle revelations emerge, but the full truth remains untouched, hidden in layers, waiting for someone brave enough to approach. And then comes the silence. A heavy silence, one that speaks louder than any scream you've ever heard on the tapes. A silence that weighs on your bones, that shakes your perception of time and reality. You feel the invisible presence of Lake, of Ing, of all the decisions that accumulate and transform into physical and emotional pain. Every detail of the bunker is a record of the transformation taking place in the mind of the observer, a testament to what brutality, manipulation, and control can do when applied systematically. You begin to realize that the concrete isn't enough to contain what's buried. There's something more, something hidden beneath the ground that transcends the bunker's walls. Every mark, every trace, every object placed there has a purpose yet to be revealed. It's as if the ground itself is conspiring to keep the secret alive, to ensure that only fragments of the truth escape the notice of those who dare investigate. And you feel compelled to look deeper, to search every shadow, every corner. As you walk through the space, your mind begins to reconstruct the events, connecting the small details into a tapestry of terror and fascination. The cold isn't just physical, it permeates your body, infiltrating your mind, leaving traces of regret, guilt, and reflection. Every object, every record, every trace of destroyed life acts as a mirror reflecting your own curiosity, your fear, and the need to understand something that truly defies explanation. And then you realize that the experience isn't just about observing but about feeling. Feeling the tension of constant surveillance, the vulnerability of those faced with extreme decisions, the silent fracture of erased identities, of nullified lives. The cameras, the diaries, the handcuffs aren't just objects. They're extensions of a mind that has decided to impose a kind of distorted justice, one that has fed on fear, manipulated empathy, and carefully calculated pain. You notice that every inch of the bunker carries a fragmented history. A record of power and terror, of manipulation and control, but also of subtle revelations that only become clear to those who dare pay attention. Every object seems to whisper, "There's more here than the concrete can hide, more than the behind-the-scenes reveals, more than the police could ever imagine." And it is at this moment that the crack opens. The bunker is just the first layer of an abyss that stretches beneath the property's soil. Remains that have yet to be discovered, secrets that defy any logical explanation, shadows waiting to reveal themselves. You feel, as you walk among the remains, that each step brings you closer to a profound, visceral understanding that transcends fear and curiosity. That each fragment of horror you observe is, in fact, a silent invitation to traverse the unknown, to delve deeper into the hidden terror that pulses beneath the concrete. And as you stare at every detail, every trace, you realize that this space of terror is only the beginning. Because what's buried, what's been meticulously hidden, still holds stories that refuse to be told, secrets waiting to be revealed in ever denser, ever more disturbing layers. And you feel it. The soil of the property doesn't just hold concrete. It holds the extension of a mind that transformed fear into a tool, pain into discipline, life into fragments. Every step you take within this space, every breath you take, brings you closer to a truth that, though fragmented, begins to insinuate itself into your consciousness. You feel the weight of the earth, but not just the earth. Each step across the terrain now resonates like a timepiece, marking eras of secrets trying to remain buried. Small, almost unnoticed bone fragments rest among the undergrowth, silent witnesses to decisions that defied all moral logic. You observe scattered belongings, ordinary objects that have become markers of interrupted stories. Each carries the aura of transformation, erased lives, distorted mindsets, the invisible impact of choices made without remorse. The wind blows, carrying a whisper that seems to repeat names, dates, codes. You perceive the complexity of the web. Old cases, until then isolated, begin to connect like a tenuous thread, woven with precision by time and method. The police in the past didn't see it, you see it. Every detail that escaped the official eye now reveals itself to your perception, as if it were part of a behind-the-scenes puzzle, a hidden truth that only those close enough can perceive. Lake's diaries, still damp from the past, reveal dates, rituals, and patterns. The seemingly innocent entries conceal the calculated horror of decades. The human mind is revealed here in its rawness. Decisions that were supposed to protect lives were used to destroy them. You feel a mixture of fascination and repulsion, a strange empathy for the psychological mechanism that made all this possible, but also a quiet rage at the exploited human vulnerability. And then you find something that changes your perspective. A coded list, written with obsessive care, mentions names that never appeared in the investigations. Victims who were never found, but whose existence is documented behind the scenes, between the lines of records and belongings. You feel the vertigo of discovery. How many secrets still lie beneath the ground? How many hidden truths wait to emerge? The psychological impact intensifies, and you realize that each fragment found is not just material, but an extension of pain, control, and manipulation. As you examine the diaries, you notice patterns that defy logic. Codes that can be deciphered in multiple ways, dates that repeat, coincidences that become suspicious. You feel a growing tension. Each object, each fragment, each note is an invitation to look deeper, to understand a mind that transformed fear into a tool, that turned pain into a map to absolute power. There are layers and layers of revelations waiting to be unraveled, but nothing is given over simply. Each discovery raises more questions than answers. Each step into the terrain reveals a shadow deeper than you imagined. The ground, once merely a base, now becomes an active witness. You notice the red line, the presence of the abyss that opens beneath each fragment. It's as if the ground itself has memories, and these memories press, pushing you to feel, to question, to doubt your own perception of what is real and what is interpretation. You begin to doubt, were all the disappearances their work? Or is there something more, a force, a decision, a coincidence that became horror? Doubt creeps in, almost like the cold wind that penetrates every crevice of the property. And it is at this moment that you feel the extent of the web. It's not just physical, it's not just concrete. It's a web of choices, decisions, and consequences that span years, feeding on silence, neglect, and ignorance. Every bone fragment, every belonging, every encrypted name is a link, a reflection of the hidden truth that expands silently but relentlessly. You understand that the horror lies not only in the actions, but in the continuity, in the ability to remain hidden, waiting for the right moment to emerge. You notice empathy mingling with fear. The victim's pain permeates time, reverberating in your mind, and you feel a responsibility to observe, to understand, to feel every fragment of humanity that was stolen. And yet, there's an almost irresistible fascination in continuing to investigate, in trying to piece together a picture that refuses to be complete. As you walk through the terrain, traces continue to appear, each bringing more layers of interpretation and horror. There are signs that confuse, false leads that challenge your perception, paths that fork, revelations that only partially reveal themselves. You sense you're facing something greater, something that transcends the cabin, the bunker, the buried concrete. Something that pulses beneath the ground and in the shadows, a silent force of control and manipulation, waiting for attentive eyes to perceive its reach. And suddenly you realize you're not just an observer. You're inside the narrative, experiencing the psychological impact, sharing the tension, the fear, the empathy. Every step you take, every fragment you discover, every code you decipher, brings you closer to an understanding that is at once fascinating and terrifying. The web expands not just in space but in mind, in time, in perception. And even with all the bones, diaries, and belongings, there are names that still remain invisible, waiting to be discovered, fragments of a truth that refuses to be fully revealed, keeping you trapped, reflecting, questioning, feeling each moment as if you were there. The world began to watch, hungry eyes, but you sensed there's something they'll never understand. The headlines screamed, reporters searched for sensations, images, stories. Bunker of death, they wrote, and you feel the weight of those words as if they were concrete words thrown at your own consciousness. For the press, horror became a spectacle, reduced to statistics, numbers, and dates, to a linear narrative that doesn't acknowledge the complexity of the human mind, the silent transformation that led everything to that point. You sense the rift between what is shown and what is felt. Society wants quick answers, wants to bridge the gap of incomprehension with simple explanations, but you know better. Every fragment discovered in the bunker, every diary opened, every trace of a life erased, contains layers of decisions, choices, and impacts that cannot be summarized in headlines. The hidden truth is fragmentary, and each revelation brings with it more questions. You feel complicit in this understanding. There is no passive voyeurism here. You are inside the mind, feeling every breath, every calculated gesture, every disturbing silence. The released images show dirty walls, cameras at precise angles, and meticulously recorded marks of violence. You feel the chill of these recordings but also perceive the emptiness. Nothing fully reveals what happened. The victim's pain permeates the screen, permeates time, and you feel every whisper, every silent prayer that went unheard. And while the world wants to settle accounts, you realize that the ashes, the bones, the human remains are unrecognizable. They defy any attempt at classification, any desire for closure. It's proof that the real impact is not accounted for, not measured, not fit into a newspaper article. As the media constructs narratives, you begin to notice the subtleties. Names omitted, dates inconsistent, details that seem purposefully eluded. You feel the tension of understanding that the press is merely a reflection of society, eager to safely close gaps but unable to grapple with the depth of the psychology involved. The mind of Lake, of Ng, of anyone who perpetuated these horrors, is there between the lines, behind the scenes of decisions no one wants to admit. Every decision, every choice made decades ago, reverberates now like a red line, reminding you that the horror isn't just physical, it's mental, it's social, it's invisible. And you realize that the public obsession, the fascination with the forbidden, is not unlike your own gaze. A desire to understand, to map, to touch what is terrifying but without ever truly achieving it. The media exposes photos, interviews, fragments of accounts, and you feel that each written word is an echo of a deeper truth, of a silent transformation that shaped lives and erased others. And even with all the exposure, there are gaps the press cannot fill. Irreparable details, lost names, decisions that only existed in the space between the concrete and the silence of the bunker. You observe the public's reactions, outrage, curiosity, certain fear. But there's something deeper that most don't realize. It's not just about who killed or how many disappeared. It's about the mindset that allowed it to happen, about the behind-the-scenes nature of a network that operated in the shadows, about the hidden truth that doesn't bend to journalistic logic. And you feel that, by delving into this, you're touching not only the horror of the facts, but also the psychological impact that spans decades, shaping consciousness and challenging perceptions. And while society searches for numbers, you realize the real weight lies in the unanswered questions. An official count will never be possible because what was lost cannot be accounted for, and each ash carries an entire story that the press doesn't reveal. You feel the frustration, the helplessness, but also the urgency to keep exploring, to keep revealing layers, to delve deeper into the mind that designed it all. It's as if the very silence of the bunker breathes through the pages of the diaries, through the photos, through what remains in the soil. A whispered message that only you can hear. And it is at this point that reflection intensifies. You realize that the impact of the crime is not just in the act, but in how the world reacts, in how history is shaped, how the hidden truth lurks in every fragment. Every decision made by Lake and Ng now reverberates within you, in every feeling of discomfort, in every hesitation in touching on the details, in every doubt that arises about what is real and what is interpretation. You become part of the narrative, an accomplice to understanding, a guardian of the gaps no one else dares to explore. While the audience gazes upon the bunker of death as a spectacle, you perceive the backstage, dark corridors, half-open doors, cold light reflecting on stained concrete, human remains that cannot be named, fragments of a truth that insists on remaining hidden. And even amidst so much exposure, you sense there is something more, something yet to be revealed, a deeper layer, hidden beneath the surface, awaiting your keen perception. Each discovery, each fragment of narrative, each clue left in the diaries and on the property itself is an invitation to delve deeper, to question, to feel, to reflect on the limits of the human mind and the price of curiosity. And you sense that, no matter how much the world screams for answers, the true experience lies in realizing the extent of the horror, in understanding the web of decisions, in feeling the silent transformation that shaped each event. The real impact isn't in the headlines. It's in you, in the way you perceive, in the way the human mind can lose itself and rebuild itself in layers of pain, fear, and manipulation. And it is at this point that the narrative prepares to reveal the next fragment, an even more disturbing truth that hides beneath the concrete, waiting to be unveiled, but that demands your full attention, reflection, and courage. You realize how every detail escapes your comprehension. Every shadow holds something you can't yet touch. That's how it works here. It's not just about watching but about feeling, about entering the cracks, the gaps the world ignores. Each inscription, each gesture of your attention, is as if you're opening a silent door to continue exploring these hidden truths. It's not about numbers, it's about belonging. About being with those who understand the weight of silence, who know that every fragment we reveal has consequences, visible or not. When you subscribe, it's not just a click. It's a silent pact. You want to keep discovering, we want to keep showing. It's an agreement of trust, and it's in this space that the most profound stories become possible. Every mystery we unravel, every shadow we illuminate, depends on this bond. It's your curiosity that keeps the narrative alive. It's your attention that allows secrets to continue to emerge, that hidden truths find those who can understand the real impact, the weight of decisions, the extent of the horror that transcends the concrete and reaches here to you. If you feel the need to understand more, to walk through these half-open doors, to see what no one else dares, then be part of this silent movement. Sign up and keep this chain of discovery going. Every story, every revelation, every dark backstage we'll yet explore depends on it. And as you process these images, these fragments, these doubts that insist on lingering, know that this is just the surface. There are more layers, more faces, more decisions that reverberate beyond what the media has dared to show. And together we will continue descending through these cracks, feeling, perceiving, understanding, but only if you choose to walk this path with us. So, if this search for the forbidden, for hidden truth, for the impact of human choices resonates with you, do your part. Sign up and stay on this silent journey, because the story isn't over yet, and the most disturbing secrets are yet to emerge from the shadows. The cold wind that runs through the corridors of Aang's mind moves not only through time, but through the layers of what he allowed to be seen. His every gesture, every calculated look, carries an intention no one could fully measure. You feel, as you imagine, the transformation of a man who knew the limits of morality and yet kept fragments of humanity hidden, concealed behind masks, diaries, and cameras. There are decisions there that weigh like concrete on forgotten bones, echoes of choices that marked lives and left traces that justice has only just begun to map. When he flees to Canada, you don't just follow a man running. You follow a mentality expanding, the construction of a network that the world would only begin to decipher years later. Every step, every shadow he crosses, reveals the backstage of a mind that has learned to calculate the impact of every move. And you, a silent confidant, realize that not all truths are in plain sight. There are gaps, cracks, half-open doors that whisper of what was done, but don't allow you to see it fully. The international capture is not only a triumph of the law, it is an abrupt interruption of the control Aang believed he possessed. But even in the cell, the hidden truth remains fragmented. The lawyers, the investigators, even the journalists trying to reconstruct the monster's steps, deal only with reflections, pieces of a puzzle where the void is as disturbing as the completed pieces. And you feel it, the pain of not knowing completely, the world's regret for having ignored the signs, the strange empathy for a victim you never knew, but whose presence lingers in every shadow the camera missed. Trials unfold, with countless testimonies and evidence being recorded. But the most distressing part isn't the law trying to measure something that can't be measured. It's realizing that reality bends to interpretation. Tapes, fragments of recordings, indirect testimonies, you understand that every narrative that reaches you has already been filtered, edited, and made decisions that shape the psychological impact it's meant to provoke. You wonder, do we know a criminal or just the version someone chose to show us? As you watch, you realize that the gap between what is revealed and what remains hidden creates a tension impossible to ignore. Every document, every detail of a found diary, carries small clues, subtle signs, silent codes that can only be deciphered if you pay attention to the rhythm, the cold light illuminating a face or a forgotten corner. And curiosity mixes with a certain fear. You want to see more, but you feel the weight of every decision, every choice made without a backward glance. Ing remains an enigma. What exactly he did, who he actually hit, who escaped by millimeters of coincidence or pure luck. All of this still breathes in the shadows of the courtroom and the archives that no one has dared to fully open. And you, an invisible confidant, feel the impact of this hidden truth, of those decisions that spanned years and continents, never losing the shape of a red line hovering in the air. There are moments when the condemned man's mind seems to materialize before you. You feel the tension, almost palpable, of every second before the execution, every measured breath, every touch of the outside world that can no longer influence his choices. And even with capture and trials, you understand that the real terror lies not in the law, but in his perception of reality, in his ability to manipulate shadows and silences so that the entire world wonders if it has ever known the true face of evil. As investigators sift through files and notes, you notice fragments of old patterns reappearing in new contexts. Dates, locations, small decisions that indicate the web of horror began much earlier than previously thought. And each fragment that emerges is a silent revelation, a shock that echoes behind everything you thought you understood about control, power, and manipulation. You find yourself imagining the victims who were never found, those whose stories never reached the newspapers, whose voices still remain trapped in the silence of the concrete, in the space between walls and sky, in the subterranean spaces where humanity is most fragile. The killer's mind remains partially hidden, but you realize that in every detail that emerges, there are lessons about dark transformations, decisions that shape destinies, and the devastating psychological impact of each act that remains unseen to the public eye. And so, as the ashes settle, as the diaries and encrypted lists begin to be interpreted, you feel reality fold into layers of doubt and horror. There's always more, always an echo beyond what the press dares to report, a shadow that passes between the concrete and the cold light, between the red line and the half-open door, showing that what happened is only the beginning of something that still reverberates. You realize that silence is as powerful as truth, that every fragment that remains, bones, diaries, tapes, is just a half-open door to understanding what the human mind can conceive, and that the real impact of these revelations will only be felt if you keep watching, paying attention to every sign, every gesture, every decision that, even years later, still decides who you think understands evil, and who you realize you can never fully understand. And at the center of it all, you feel a growing tension, the realization that the hunt isn't over, that the voids hold more than any court or investigator could reveal. Every detail that emerges is a silent invitation to look deeper, to go behind the scenes, to confront the hidden truths that lurk among the remains and shadows. The chill of reality touches your mind and you wonder, how many secrets still remain buried, waiting to be unearthed, waiting for you, the silent confidant, to perceive the next step in the web that never truly ended. The air in the room feels thicker than anything you've ever imagined. You feel every breath Lake takes, slow, calculated, as he stares into the camera, as if he knows you're on the other side, trying to decipher, trying to anticipate every thought. He talks about Project Miranda with a chilling ease. It's not just the content of the words, it's the weight they carry, the silent intention behind each syllable, the realization that the control wasn't just physical but psychological, mental. You sense the transformation of a mind that knew how to craft decisions that would shape destinies, and the hidden truth he offers is just a fragment, a glimpse that raises more questions than answers. As you watch, you feel the impact of absolute power, the devastating effect it exerts on those who could never escape. Every gesture, every pause, seems like a meticulous dance of manipulation, a demonstration that even in the face of law and confinement, he still controls the pace. You understand almost instinctively that behind-the-scenes details like these, diaries, recordings, objects left behind, are clues to a mind that delighted in keeping the world in the dark. And you, a silent confidant, realize that part of this horror is invisible, because some truths will never be captured, because the psychological impact of his actions surpasses what any investigation can document. There are moments when you sense the imminence of danger, as if a half-open door allows a glimpse into the abyss. The cold light that permeates the room accentuates every shadow, every detail that might otherwise go unnoticed, and you perceive his skill in transforming any situation into a lesson in fear, distorted empathy, and guilt. Every decision he makes, every act he deliberately chooses to record or conceal, reveals a mindset that flirts with the edge of the incomprehensible, that defies any moral understanding. As Lake continues to speak, you notice small signs, microgestures that indicate more than words could reveal. Every glance at the camera, every strategic silence, is a behind-the-scenes play that fits into the larger narrative of absolute control. You sense, even if subconsciously, that the story doesn't end here, that the fragments of tapes, diaries, and encrypted lists still hold layers of truth that may remain hidden forever. What you're seeing is only the surface, and the discomfort you feel is the anticipation of what can never be fully revealed. There's a quiet tension running through the narrative. You notice the way his mind moves, how the calculation of each action anticipates human reactions, how the empathy you feel is manipulated by an invisible rhythm. And it's in this rhythm that you find yourself caught up, trapped in the realization that true violence lies not only in the acts, but in the construction of a reality you can't fully decipher, in the psychological impact that spans decades and continues to reverberate even after confinement. You realize the silence around you isn't empty. Every pause between words, every camera angle he chooses, is a partial revelation, a provocation that arouses curiosity and fear, leaving you wondering whether you've truly understood something or merely touched the surface. It's in this space, between the seen and the hidden, that psychological voyeurism intensifies, where the mind becomes both witness and accomplice to a story that defies comprehension. And then, amidst this tension, a strange sense of reciprocity emerges. You realize that following every detail, every fragment of truth, is also part of a silent pact. The channel, the content, the dark narratives you consume, live because you observe, because you choose to delve into these layers of horror and revelation. Each time you allow yourself to enter this world, each moment you connect with these hidden truths, is a gesture that keeps the impact alive, that ensures more layers are explored, that more secrets are gradually revealed. And so, almost naturally, a sense of continuity, of belonging, emerges. If you feel this connection, if the discomfort and curiosity you carry are real, the only way to honor this experience is to stay with it, observe, reflect. It is through you, through your silent involvement, that each piece of truth, each revelation finds space to exist. Registration in this sense is not just a click, it is a gesture of reciprocity, a way of ensuring that the half-open doors continue to lead you through these corridors of mystery and impact, through these backstage areas where psychological horror manifests itself so densely it seems tangible. As Lake finishes his address to the camera, there's a final, almost palpable tension that runs through every fragment of space. You realize that part of the truth remains unseen. Victims who may never be told, accomplices who disappeared into the shadows, tapes lost to time. And you, the silent confidant, feel the weight of it, the impact of all that is hidden and yet decisive, the revelation that absolute control existed, exists, and perhaps continues in some form, waiting to be unearthed. And in that instant, you understand, following, reflecting, subscribing, and staying connected isn't just curiosity, it's participation. It's a silent gesture that keeps the exploration of the shadows alive, that allows each hidden truth to find its way into existence. And even if the silence stretches on, even if some doors never fully open, you feel the pulse of the next step, the energy of the mystery that continues to unfold, while horror, empathy, and psychological voyeurism stand side by side, ready to reveal more than any words could capture. And now that you've made it this far, it's because you've felt every shadow, every sigh, every silence that permeates history. You've realized how truth can be fragmented, cruel, and yet fascinating. So do something for yourself, for us. Leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." Let it be your mark that you were here, that you understood the intensity of every detail, every decision, every impact hidden between the lines. If you felt this connection, this weight, and this restlessness we've been through together, give us a like. It's not about numbers, it's about recognizing that we're on this path side by side, that you understand that justice and mystery walk hand in hand, and that every untold story still pulses silently, waiting to be unraveled. And if you want to continue, if you want to follow the trail of these hidden truths, there's a video here that complements everything we've seen so far. It delves even deeper into the layers we haven't shown here, into the behind the scenes that still echo in the corridors of the human mind. Click and stay with me there, because the story isn't over yet, and some half-open doors only reveal more abysses when you dare to cross them.